Welcome back to the podcast. We have officially released 300 episodes of the podcast, which I'm very excited to announce on today's episode. So, thank you so much for being a part of just the ride, listening to some really great leaders who are transforming the digital enterprise. And we continue this series, our partnership series, with another wonderful partner and somebody specifically who's been really changing the game when it comes to business. We have Jason Lee with us. He is the chief Chime chief of Chime Enterprise at Chime and founder of and CEO of Daily Pay from 2022. He founded Salt Labs, and Salt Labs in 2024 sold to Chime Financial. And that's the idea of the today's podcast. And I want to bring Jason on onto the show. I can't wait to chat with him all about Chime and the great work that they're doing, especially within the wellness space and employee financial wellness, which will be the topic of today's discussion. Jason, welcome to Millennium Live. It's great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks so much, Connor. I'm thrilled to be here. And more importantly, I am thrilled to be number 301. I'm not from Silver Spring, Maryland, but but I will always remember 301.
I appreciate that, Jason. I really do. And thanks a lot. And to all of our listeners, it's this one 301 is going to be even extra special. So let's just we'll jump right into it. And Jason, I just want to say that you've had such an impressive journey, especially in the employee financial wellness space. And first, founding a company that started earned wage access and now starting an enterprise division at one of the largest private fintechs in the U.S. right now. So, would love to get a little bit of background on you. And I didn't do a even good enough job scratching the surface about your background. So I'd love you to tell the listeners a little bit about your story and really what led you to your current role at Chime as we sit here today on the podcast.
Well, sure, Connor. And again, thanks for having me. I'm super thrilled to participate in this. We're huge fans of what the Millennium Alliance is all about, what they've built, obviously, this podcast. And so thanks again. Yeah, so I've spent now pretty much almost a decade or so in the broad category of HR technology. I started my career out of school building financial products on Wall Street, and I did that for almost 2 decades, and then transitioned into technology following that. As you mentioned, I started a company, and I guess what ultimately turned out to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. I guess out of my basement is really me and my technology partner, my dog Jack, who has enjoyed none of the spoils of what we've been up to. But the three of us, we started coding the early version of what became Daily Pay. It's a multi-billion-dollar company that really is a leader in on-demand pay and earned wage access. And that thing just became a huge trend. This idea that, gosh, 30% of the workforce-ish is living paycheck to paycheck. And, is there an ability for us to be really servicing that group of employees to be able to be much more engaged at work by enabling them to really have basic things met, paying their bills on time, paying their rent on time, not being stressed out by having to incur a late payment. And that was an amazing thing that we built at Daily Pay. We exited that company to an investor group in 2022, and then were really embarked on a new project called Salt Labs, which was backed by my same investors who had backed us at Daily Pay. And what we were trying to accomplish there, and what we still are accomplishing there, is the ability to create what we called the very first employee loyalty program. Think about it as airline miles for work. It's this idea that, hey, we all spend time at work. Wouldn't it be great if we got something in return for that? And lo and behold, people tend to react and behave in very, very unique ways in relation to wanting to build more of this other thing than their paycheck. We call that thing salt. Sometimes it's called miles or credit card reward points or Starbucks stars if you drink coffee, but we treat those things in a very, very different way. We hoard them, we save them, we kind of collect them in order to be able to achieve some type of outcome. I'm saving my miles right now to maybe one day go first class, believe it or not, to Hawaii. That would be great if I could do that with my wife. And so that's really kind of the idea behind SALT was all of a sudden we found employees wanting to earn more SALT, and in so doing, they were becoming more loyal to their employer. Chime Financial acquired um, Salt Labs really after 14 or so months of us being in operation. We weren't looking to sell the company. Obviously, we'd only been around for about 14 months, but they wound up acquiring it. We put the companies together for a little bit less than $200 million. And really the idea here and what I'm working on now is the ability for us to deliver really world-class financial wellness products to employers so that they can enable their employees to become much more financially healthy. Just to kind of maybe take a quick step back and maybe describe a little bit of who Chime is. Chime's a financial banking application, and we think a lot about unlocking financial progress for everyday Americans. We were designed to go serve a very, very wide range of individuals, but specifically those who are not typical beneficiaries of the current financial and banking system. And what we think about all day long is how to unlock progress for those specific individuals. Those tend to overlap with hourly workers, frontline workers, etc. But that's really kind of our mission here at Chime.
Well, that's great. Thanks for the background, Jason. It's yeah, great to have you. And with over 300 episodes, it's really great to tackle financial wellness and especially in the enterprise space. And we all know that loyal employees are good employees, and good employees are treated well by their employer. And organizations like what Assault Labs provides is really fascinating to me for employers to really implement to take care of their employees in the best way possible. And I want to talk about this phrase, this unlocking financial progress. And it's something that sounds like something that we all want to do and we all want to be capable of doing. And when it comes to employees, what does that entail? What does that mean? And your journey throughout a daily pay and Assault Labs, I'm sure you could define it better than most. But how do you define financial progress for employees, especially in today's very rapid workplace?
Yeah, maybe I would just take that expression or take that phrase, and that is our mission here at Chime. And maybe I'll just separate into two keywords. Number one, unlocking, and number two, progress. From the unlocking standpoint, we think a lot about this fact that the relationship between finance and technology and frankly HR, that's constantly evolving. And what that evolution means is it creates these very interesting and unique opportunities for us to be able to expand access to financial services really more than ever before. The reality is for many Americans, the financial and banking system really does still fall short. It does limit access to basic opportunities. And for what it's worth, I think contributes to structural economic equality across
Mm.
particular types of Americans and particular types of workers. What we do at Chime is through a combination of technology, design, cost transparency, low fees, we make finance and banking accessible, intuitive, easy to use. And that's in contrast to several financial institutions that might be out there who are really relying on a more sophisticated user base. The second thing we talk a lot about is progress. And what progress means for us is that within a given employee base, we've kind of figured out that there are probably something like kind of three major groups of employees. There is the first group, which represents about 30% of the workforce, and they are those who really can't pay their bills on time. And they have defined what progress means to them very simply. Progress means for them, I want to pay a bill on time. That's what it means to them. I just want to be able to pay my bills on time. And so at Chime, we offer products for that person. We say, hey, look, sign up for one of our bank accounts, get paid 2 days early. If that's not sufficient, sign up for our earned wage access product. Control when it is that you get paid. But what we want you to do is we want you to make progress. We want you to be able to pay your bills on time. There's a second group of individuals within a workforce who can pay their bills on time, but they're having difficulty saving, meaning they are just getting by and they can't save. And so what we've done is we've built very unique products for that 40% of the workforce to help them save. It's not traditional savings. It's not make your paycheck less. We've come up with really interesting technology, which makes it easy and intuitive for someone to save. Salt is one of those products. Salt is a product where people earn salt alongside their paycheck and they wind up not spending their salt. Well, guess what? That's French for saving. Earning something of value that you don't spend is just French for saving. And so we've kind of built that technology into our application. The third group of individuals are those who can pay their bills on time. They can also save, but they now want to have their money do more for them. They want to build credit. They want to maybe one day get an auto loan, maybe get a home mortgage at some point. And they are looking to their employer as, I define my progress as the ability to do that. Well, one of the really pernicious realities in today's world is that people can't build credit without first getting credit. It's sort of an endless loop. The canonical example of this is, how do I get a credit card? Well, get a credit card first and then build credit. Okay, that really doesn't work. And in particular, does not work for our demographic. So we have built technology which enables everyday Americans to transform everyday purchases into credit building activity. What we've done is we've said, hey, look, go buy a Coca-Cola at 7-Eleven, and we've built some technology which wires ourselves into the reporting agencies, et cetera, that turn that instrument or turn that purchase into a credit building purchase. And we've done that because we know that people can't build credit by getting a credit card first. And so what we've said is, hey, look, we've got some technology that will enable you to spend the money that you currently have in your bank account today, but we will qualify that as a credit building activity. So again, three groups. One, people who can't pay their bills on time. Two, people who want to save more. And three, people who want to build their credit. Each of those defines progress differently, but they're all looking to the same employer for help to go get to that next level.
Mm, yeah, that's great. Thanks for tackling that phrase, Jason. And as we're kind of on this topic of, obviously not everyone is in the same place financially, and it varies employee to employee. And I want to know more about the technology and how you leverage technology and the technology that's at Chime that really does meet the unique needs of employees based on individual aspects of one's life. To really create that personalized financial experience when using salt.
Well, look, it all starts, we think, with one's bank account. You can't sort of avoid that. Now, we're not in the business signing up everyone with a toaster. Like that's not really our, end objective when we work with employers. But we do know this, which is people tend to think about their money in one place. And people tend to think about, hey, I earn money from my employer. I now pay my bills and I now want to save. And we do think that there's value in creating some co-location or really interoperability across the basic account structure with other financial services that might be out there. A lot of our users will use Chime, but they'll also use Chase Bank or someone else. And we make sure that those wires can be connected in with one another.
You've mentioned that the solutions don't always address the full spectrum of employees. What are some of the limitations when it comes to solutions, and how does Chime, how are you tackling this comprehensive approach to overcoming these challenges and these barriers?
Yeah, well, look, if there's one thing that your listeners can take out of this session, this is session 301. So there's one session if there's one tagline from session 301, it is this, which is one needs to pick a financial health plan that encompasses the most broad set of issues that your employees might have. And to make this point, let me draw an analogy to healthcare. Let's say that you're in charge of picking the health plan for that year. I think there actually was a episode of The Office where Dwight was in charge of picking the health plan. And so let's say you had that honor of picking the health plan. Well, look, here's the thing. You you would never pick a plan that only addressed tennis elbow. It's called the health plan. It's not called the tennis elbow plan. You would not pick a plan that only addressed one particular ailment. Of course you wouldn't. You'd pick a health plan that covered tennis elbow, knee surgery, a bad back, internal medicine, allergies, all of the things that you could think of. We call that the most comprehensive plan. And that is the job of the benefits administrator. Go pick a comprehensive health plan. And in the same way, what we advise our companies and our clients to do is to think about selecting the most comprehensive financial health plan. It can't be that I'm only going to address people who can't pay bills on time. Yes, that's 30% of my population, but 30% is still a minority of the workforce. 70% of the workforce is thinking, well, what about me? What do you have for me? I mean, I know the guys over there got their tennis elbow fixed, but I've got a different issue. And so when employers think about picking a financial health plan, they need to think about what is the most comprehensive plan that will cover the waterfront of the things that I'm looking for.
I just want to talk just very quickly about, how you measure the efficacy of a program like Chime, or just even talking more broadly about financial wellness programs that are offered to employers.
Yeah, so look, I think there's a couple of things that we think a lot about, in particular within the employer context. Number one, obviously, is sheer engagement, which is how many people are using the products. And this is really where I think we do tend to think a lot about our offering, which is by definition, because we have something for everyone, by definition, the adoption and engagement rates for our program tend to be very, very high. If you only offered tennis elbow insurance, then only those people who have tennis elbow will use that product. If you only offer let me pick up my last product, an earned wage access product. Well, only those who need it will use it. But don't you want to pick a program that has something for everyone in it, where the 30% who need earned wage access are using that, where the 50% who might need a savings product are using that, and so forth. So number one, it's absolute engagement. Number two is what impact is that having on the employee base as it relates to their role at work? We look at things like retention data, engagement data, turnover, improvement of absenteeism. And the most wonderful thing about being able to offer something for everyone is that impact gets amplified. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say that you've got 1,000 people in a company and 30% of them are using a financial wellness product. And let's say those 30% are staying 50% longer. Well, that is a 15% improvement, 50% of 30%, across the entire workforce. But now let's say that you had 60% of the workforce staying 50% longer. Well, now that's a 50%, 30% rather, improvement across the workforce. And so the idea here is people will stay longer if they feel like you've invested in their financial health. But with that said, you got to get more people to engage in the program. And that's really where our offering of having multiple entry points for the employee really does make a difference for that employer.
Yeah, that's great. I want to build off that and kind of bring it back to where we started. And with the few companies that I've had on the podcast that are in this space, you would think that the answer is so straightforward, but it's sometimes not. And it's about why employers really should implement partners like Assault Labs. Why they should be taking care of their employees' financial wellness. Uh, and making sure that they're not just covering tennis elbow, but a variety of options. You know, what is the tangible impact on a business when employees make financial progress other than just having very happy, successful employees, loyal employees?
Um, well, look, let me, I think sometimes, excuse me, sometimes these things are better answered through real life scenario or frankly, vignettes. I think I can answer this very simply by talking about the last time I was at the airport, which was last week. I'm at the airport and I'm trying to get a cup of coffee from Auntie Anne's Pretzels. Now, the first point is, I admit I was at Auntie Anne's Pretzels, and and here I was just trying to grab a cup of coffee, and the poor worker wouldn't serve me. They wouldn't take my order, and it was because she was on the phone, and I could tell who she was on the phone with. It was with her landlord trying to negotiate a longer rent payment. And here she is
Mm.
on the phone, and the line is starting to build for people looking for either a cup of coffee or maybe a pretzel with caramel sauce. I don't know. But whatever it was, that was preventing a bunch of sales from actually happening. We can't have that. It's bad for employees, but it's also bad for business. All of those sales, frustrated customers, people leaving, going to the next store, going to Starbucks or whatever it was. I'm not picking on Auntie Anne's Pretzels. It was just where I was. But this idea that, you know what, people's financial lives are profoundly and acutely the most important thing that governs how they spend their time, and in particular in the frontline workforce.
Yeah, that is a good example, and it does come to show you that you know financial wellness affects employees' lives, and it may not have anything to do with work, but if they're struggling, it's going to affect your business, and it's going to affect it long term. So, why do you believe now, of all times, as we're discussing this, it's Q4 of 2024 on the horizon. We're halfway through the 2020s, if you could believe that. But now is more important than ever for companies to really focus on that long-term goal, on those long-term financial wellness strategies, especially rather than just implementing quick fixes or a pizza party or, point solutions. Why is now the time to invest?
Well, look, I think if 4 years ago we came out and said, look, you need to think about this much more methodically, holistically, I think we would have been laughed out of the room. And frankly, the company that I was last running, or the last two companies I was running, were in that period of time. Interest rates were at 0%. The labor market was the tightest it's ever been. We were facing something like 3.1% unemployment. And in that world, it is all about the point solution. It is all about, let me grab the nearest object or the nearest tool because I need 1,000 people to run these stores and I only have 600 in the seat. I think a lot about the pandemic when the markets reopened and every restaurant was short-staffed, every retailer was short-staffed, and you couldn't run your business properly without having quote unquote butts in seats. And in that environment, it is actually not the right decision to go out and try to do something holistically. What you actually need is you don't need the scalpel. What you actually need is like the hatchet, and you're really just trying to machete through a very, very difficult operating environment. Fast forward to where we are today, Oh, now we've got rates at 4.5%, the 10 years at 3.75%. Unemployment's actually receding a little bit, and labor market's loosening. This is the perfect time
Mm.
for us to be thinking strategically, to go take a breath, and for us to say, well, what is the right investment that we want to make from a systems as well as an employee standpoint for the next 7 to 10 years? And anyone who's not thinking about that in that way, look, I'd venture to say is not doing your job. This ain't the time for point solutions. This is really not, because the market has receded. This is the time to really think strategically and to partner with finance and with the C-suite to really be thoughtful about, hey, this is the long-term solution that we want at our company, not just sort of the next kind of point solution that we will be implementing.
That's a great point. Jason, I love asking kind of in closing about the future. And we're discussing why this is so important now. But, I'm always fascinated where, somebody like you is heading. This is a leadership and discovery podcast, and you're one of those people who continue to just have an impressive story. And as you look to the future, what's on the horizon for you, and what's next for Chime? And how do you see? I know now I'm just asking you three questions instead of one, but how do you see the future of financial wellness evolving, even as much as it's already evolved in the last 10 years? And and really, what is Chime's role in where this is all going to go? Just fascinated to hear what your thoughts on the future and where even not even just you're going, but where Chime is heading as well in this space.
Well, look, let me just take a part of that because there's a lot in that question. Like one of my jobs is to go look at what is happening in society, in culture, in sports, in media, in entertainment, and to think about how does that impact us in our neck of the woods, how employers interact with their employees. And what I would maybe say and leave your listeners with is you are crazy if you do not think that there is an increasing merger or an increasing alignment that's happening between how we think about our lives outside of work versus how we think about it inside of work. And specifically with regards to this discussion around the consumerization of, of services. We don't want to have an experience where we can order food, get an Uber, like send money instantly, and then here we come to work and we're waiting by the printer to print out the wrong paper on the wrong color with the wrong color. Like that is a highly dissonant experience. Highly dissonant. You're telling me I can go change the world with my phone once I step out of the office, but in the
Yeah.
office you want me to wait outside the printer? Like that's insane. And these worlds are coming together. Frankly, that was propelled by the fact that people's work lives were their home lives when we were all working from home. So there is this like increasing alignment that is occurring. And so you will see that across all aspects of financial wellness. We've already seen it with pay, right? We've changed pay for good. That will never go back. The work that we did and my colleagues did, and other companies in this space have done in the payroll space around on-demand pay, we ain't never going back. It's never going back. That's a permanent change that's occurred in the landscape. And in large part because that was driven by the fact that we can all send money to one another through Venmo or Zelle or Cash App or whatever it might be. And so that was a very, very big change that occurred. Where I think things are headed now, when we look at it, is is the reason why we had started Salt Labs is because we really felt like there was this theme of younger generations wanting to own their own outcomes. When we think about the significance of ownership, controlling my own destiny, creating my own content, that is such a theme with younger people that we said, look, it ain't enough for them to get a paycheck. They have to get a paycheck, but also have to see the output of their work, which is really what SALT is. It's just a reflection or a digital manifestation of the work that you've done. So what I would say is I don't have one prediction in particular. but except to say you can get your clues from what's going on in society generally, because the way that we consume will be the way that we work.
Jason, this has been a fascinating chat. I'm sure we could probably go on for another hour or so, and would love to have you on the podcast again, just to even just talk a little bit about life and New York City. So thank you so much for joining Millennium Live, and to our listeners, thank you for now officially we're past the 300 mark and enjoyed number 301. This is whether you're listening on a flight or in line at getting coffee at Annie Ann's. We hope you enjoy this podcast along with all the others, and fascinated by the great work that's being done at Chime, from Salt, and following Jason's career. If you are a fan, I'm sure that this is still just the beginning for him. So, Jason Lee, thank you so much for joining and being a part of the Millennium Alliance. It's great to have you, and hope to see you around in the future.
All right, Connor, we'll see you at episode 500.